Welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. We're continuing on this topic of finding our refuge in recovery. When we think about refuge, we think about a safe place. And sometimes a safe place may feel overused, that phrase itself, but as at the core, it reminds us of how when we feel safe, we can truly take some steps, confidently and bravely. Today we have a new guest, Scott Feld. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to just sharing the discussion on this topic of finding a safe place and what that really means in our recovery.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you so much, Robert.
No problem. So I always start off with a disclaimer for those who are around the world. I know there's resources that are different, but in the United States, I like to always add the suicide prevention lifeline. It's 1-800-273-8255. Like I said, we're talking about safe places, and it can be very individualized, very much so, depending on the context. But I always say this, Scott, people have said it much better than I have. So, Alice Walker says it this way: the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. What comes to mind when you hear this quote?
Yeah, I thought about this. Well, I don't know that you can actually give up what you don't think you have. So,
Yeah. I
I
get.
think, you get what I'm saying? Yeah. But I don't want to, take away from the quote. I think most importantly inside of that is people either don't know about their inner power, they think the power exists outside of them, so they give the power away. It's not that they don't know about it, they've given it away. And they've given it to, if there's demons and stuff kind of, latched onto them that they're trying to get away from, then they've given it the power. And, there might be a wrestling match, a battle between trying to get that power and it getting the power and all of that. But that's where it exists outside. And I think really the true thing to do is to look internally. You got to look inside and understand every single one of us has the same powers. The only thing is that some of those powers are stronger in many than in others. And that's only because they've strengthened them. Instead of strengthening the thing that's causing the problem, which many people do by giving it their energy and their focus and their full attention, they don't turn it inside. Go, let me give my energy and focus and full attention to myself, my powers. What can I do? Who am I?
And that's reflective moment that you have of what's going on with you, defining, hey, I like getting the derivative of how I feel. Sometimes we have all this stuff on the surface, but when we get to the core of it, I just may not feel, I may not feel included. I might feel unheard. All these little words really mean a lot and can really crack some of the surface of how much we make things complicated. The reflecting, I feel, is hugely important, but a lot of times we don't give us the time to do it. A lot of times we don't set those boundaries. We say, it has to happen today. I don't see any progress, and we're just stuck. How does I just love when we think about the idea of, the quote, like you said, it does kind of, if you don't know that you have a power, that is true. But at the same time, we also get consumed. You used to talk about the power of fear, the fear that we kind of put more of the emphasis, because the idea of any hope has to exist with uncertainty. You cannot have hope and complete certainty, and that's where sometimes we try to hedge our life expectations. I want to go into a little bit about you more and what you do. Now, just tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you work with tweens and teens, and you create this mind zen motion, engaging and fun life skills mindset power parties. That's a lot of words. Can you explain what that means for those listening right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in San Diego, California. I have my own 6-year-old kid. I wrote a book about him. We'll get to that in a moment. But Minds in Motion is really about the Zen is the calming of the mind so that you can actually get into action. into doing the things that you want. Instead of having things happen to you, you're making things happen, a much better experience of life. So we found that a lot of kids, most kids in that teen tween age group, more than ever, are carrying a heavy load with them. They wake up first thing in the morning is, who likes me and who doesn't based on my social media feeds. Who, thinks my filters were cool on Instagram and who, totally just me. And then they carry that into the day and they walk into, whatever they're doing. And the load just gets bigger and bigger as you add the school and the homework and the peer pressure and the social and everything that you're trying to keep up with. And by the end of the day, you're just like, and it just comes out in different ways. It either comes out in, full exhaustion, anxiety, depression. Kids, turn to the drugs and the alcohol and the bad decisions, and the suicide rate is super high right now for this age group. And I just know that I didn't have it when I was a teenager. I'm one of the lucky ones who got out of it, but I certainly had my own issues back then. And I knew once I discovered, I became aware of how the mind works and the super inner powers that we all possess. And when I started learning how to use them, I just knew that I had to deliver this to those who needed it probably the most. I have 25 plus years experience working with those age groups because I've owned an entertainment company for kids here in San Diego.
Okay.
This did not come out of COVID. However, it certainly helped make this, because my entertainment company got shut down and all of a sudden I had time and I needed to do something. And this was always on that kind of back burner. So I used my own training and was just like, let's get into action. Let's not start focusing on this, party company getting shut down for some weird pandemic I can't see. Let's focus on like making something really cool happen that I have the ability to do. And that's how Minds in Motion came about. So the last part of it is that because of my party background, my interactive entertainment background, I know that this had to be fun. If this just sounded like another class or another course, they weren't going to dig in it. Even if it was going to make the big difference in their life, they weren't going to know because they weren't going to enter into it,
Yeah.
And so when I made it a power party, a power quest, I provide them all with a power box when they join any one of them. They get Play-Doh because this is how we figure out how imagination works. And they get gliders because that's how your pilot and your autopilot works. Your subconscious and your conscious. And these are the classes that you use when you have to power shift. You put emojis on them. So we just make it fun. And then inside of this bag are the keys, because what happens as we go through the program, they get the keys to unlock their inner superpowers. And we make them unmesswithable. So that's the name of the course coming up.
You mentioned, this age category that we're talking about, tweens and teens. I'm 40. I just turned 40. And the thing is, looking back at that age, like the amount of exposure now, like the access to everything, I feel sometimes we don't look at context enough. We're like, well, when I was back in my day, back in your day, it wasn't like it is today. I know right now, when I had a bully, it'll be at school, but now it's all the time, 7 days a week. And I feel people like, I guess me growing up while the technology grew with me, as opposed to how it is today. What have you seen? Like, I just, listening to you, I just thought of that concept. What has been the biggest challenge working with tweens and teens, especially now, thinking back of when you were around that age? And I see how you approach it, but have you seen successes, and what have you seen not help at all? If you don't mind.
Yeah, I've seen some great successes, and I have the testimonials from the kids and the parents, and mostly it's just a simple shift in thinking made a huge difference in all areas. Because that's all it is. It's a shift in thinking. And it's a thinking of like, I need to be approved of, like nonstop. And the stress and the pressure. And that's a big one for them, That's almost a form of bullying yourself.
Yeah.
To try to live up to something. And what I found is that the kids were losing who they were, the uniqueness of themselves, because they had a fear of being bullied, more and more and more, standing out, missing out, being different, whatever it was. And so that's stressful too. I mean, that right there alone, I don't have any scientific figures, but that right there alone will cause kids to get depressed, and that will cause kids to, do, things that we don't want them to do, including, suicide, because they don't feel like they belong. So one of the trainings that we do, and one of the mindset shifts, they don't even know this. All of it, Robert, is just becoming aware of something that's already there. They
Yeah.
just don't see it.
Yeah.
They're focused on this other thing so much, right?
Yeah.
And so we can shift this acceptance and approval to support. And when you actually go ahead and look inside yourself and say, what are my unique gifts? What is it I would really love to do? Right? Do I love to dance? Do I love to sing? Do I love computers? Do I love whatever? And then you find your tribe, and then your tribe supports you. Like, they're no longer judging you because they're doing the same thing as you, and you guys are all cleaning each other up. And they love that. They love hearing that. So inside of this is still fairly new, but we are creating a movement. Like, we want teams to be able to interact with other teams who have shifted their mindsets and can support each other. It's important. Save lives.
I work in the mental health field, and one thing I notice is, with a safe place, we're talking initially, this month's theme is, talking about safe places, that I say to my clients that accountability is not a bad word when it's a safe place. Accountability, it seems like it is, but like, I feel like you're saying there's so much pressure for these young kids, and I feel they lose their identity, like you say, just because it all is performance based. It's not like them discovering and becoming better. There's no room for that. There's no room for mistakes. There's no room for any of that. So for me, I like how what you're saying, when the shifting is, it's already there, but a lot of times with how much information there was back in the day, we had an encyclopedia and we had it there. Now it's like everywhere is there. So when I look at some of the youth in my church or anything, I look at not so much how much they know, but how they adapt, because the world keeps changing. That's about So I want to ask you, I know, just shifting gears a little bit, what has your experience been regarding maintaining a refuge or a safe place in your own mindset that you kind of translate? I know you kind of explained that, but a little further on, has experience that has worked positively or negatively towards recovery or the people you're working with, especially in this context?
For me, I live in a refuge in my mind. I am like it's like wake up and like study some like spiritual or life skill thing. It's meditate on it. It's listen to it on Audible whenever I'm driving places, and then I do it for a living. I write content, I write books, and I write and I speak about it. So I'm living it like it is a refuge, but it's on purpose, right? And I think it's really important that it's not a fear-based refuge. It's not a refuge like one that goes, oh my God, I have to do all of this stuff because if I miss one little beat, I'm just gonna, end up in the sewer, right? It can't be like that. It's got to be something that you really want to do, and not necessarily even want to do every moment of it, but what you really want is what's on the other side of it. And so because I've been in the anxiety and upset and frustration, forcing things and all of that, and now I've seen the calm, allowing things. You said earlier, people want something and then like 5 minutes later it's not there, and they want to know what happened, and they're frustrated. And it's so simple just to share with them and go, look, nature's law is that if you go plant a seed, it's going to take a gestation period. Like you took a gestation period of time. Well, things will be gestating. However, if you don't plant the seed and you don't water it, you don't put in the good soil, you don't give it the sunlight, which means the attention and the focus and the energy to it, not to the opposite of it, the thing that you don't want, then it will grow. It will happen. It will become easier. It just will. It has to.
Yeah.
But one thing that people do, Robert, is they think, they put it in there and they go, I really want this. And their whole thought is, it's not happening. Well, they took their attention off of it to think it's not happening.
Yeah. You know, I a lot of times I say every day is not a crisis. And at the same time, every day may not be the best day. It's this
Right.
kind of a substance. A lot of times I ask my clients, do you have a hobby? Do you have a hobby? And
Right.
more times than not, they don't feel they deserve one. They don't feel like they have time for one.
Right.
And I'm just saying this not only in the field of work, but in regular life. You know, in church. You know, I'm a leader in church. I see it all the time. Oh, I have to do this, or because everything's defined by our performance, or our job, or our status, or whatever it is. And I feel one of the biggest things that was eye opening was, there's been moments, I remember when, Wall Street, all those people lost their jobs. It was like 2000, like that whole crash, when people lost the bubble in the internet, all that stuff, discouraged people who are real estate, they're doing great, and then they can't sell, nothing can be sold. These moments, those were before, but now, like looking now with COVID, people are home, they don't know how to kind of process that. They're in a refuge, but like their refuge of fear, like you're kind of expressing, instead of a refuge of, hey, I want to, do better. One of the things I tell my clients is, it might be overwhelming. Sometimes you're too close to the elephant to see the big picture, but you'll
Yeah.
say, I want to just be better today. Just be better today. Whatever it
Yeah.
is. Go out for a walk. Listen to music. Relax. Give if someone calls you, sometimes I tell people, don't have to answer it right away. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like people are like, well, I have to do all this. So I feel that, we're talking about normal thing. No, this translates to the tweens. This translates to the teens, the young people, because they're seeing that already. You go to a
Yeah.
restaurant, everyone's on their phone. No one's really connecting. No one's
Yeah.
present.
And
Well, no,
there's FOMO. There's FOMO involved in that for everybody. The fear of missing out, especially for them. Like if they're not on their Instagram or their Snapchat or their TikTok, like every 2 minutes, then they might miss something big, and then that might be a problem for them. But that's not real. That's just how they're perceiving it. That's their refuge. And it's not a good one. It's the
yeah.
world that they're living in, and they don't
Mhm.
want to. I promise you, they don't want to.
Yeah.
They just don't know how to get out. And that's really what Minds in Motion shows them in my courses and when I speak and stuff. It just shows them, look, here's a door and here's another door. Now, look, you can choose to go in or out of it because you'll always have that choice. And that's actually where your power lies. But you'll feel like it has the power over you if you
Mm.
don't see a choice, another option, another way. Well, that frees them. Just in that moment,
Yeah.
it frees them.
Yeah, and I feel a lot of times when it comes to these, I need to, this FOMO, or I fear of missing out, all these tangible things, a lot of times it's never enough. And the problem I kind of, because I know myself, I struggle with it. Social anxiety. You're in a social setting. What do we do? Think about it. We look at our phones. Is there anything on our phone? No. We're just like this the whole time. And I feel not, at times I'm not saying, but sometimes we dependent so much. We're not used to, the bad word confrontation. We're not used to talking things that I don't like what my friend did. So I'm just gonna avoid it. These kind of things are more forced because everything's kind of through a filter. Everything's through whatever we're trying to create as our refuge, whether it's toxic or not. And I feel that has been, and that doesn't just talk about tweens and teens. I see it every age category. We're all sucked into this.
Yeah.
So.
And so I think we can give people though, like that way out, like, that about yourself. So that's the first step. It's like just being
Yeah.
aware. Like if you're you and you're like, I know that I go to parties and I look at my phone, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
This is my first thing. This is the habit that I formed. Today, I'm going to try something new. I don't have to love it. I don't have to keep it. I'm just going to try it. I'm not going to pick up my phone for 15 minutes. I'm going to go talk to 3 people with a big smile on my face, bring light into their life, bring my light so that, and I don't have to be or do anything. I'm just going to be myself. I'm just going to introduce myself and say,
Mm.
hey. And I might even say to them, do you know I usually would just pick up my phone, but I'm trying something new today? And that could be a great, little
Yeah, yeah.
opener there for you. So I think the awareness of knowing who you are and what you do, there's always
Mm.
you can look at the cost of it. You can go like, look, this is making me antisocial. I'm not meeting new people.
Mm.
Maybe there's some anxiety involved in this for me. And then you can go on the other side of it. If I did this, what's possible? And you can use your imagination. You go, I could meet some new
Mm.
friends. I could get a new business acquaintance. I could, this
Yeah,
could be money for me. This could be a date for me. This could be whatever. And that just sounds so much better. And you're like, all right, let me go see if
yeah.
I can get that. Let me go try for that.
And I think at the same time, whenever I like a lot of times when I'm going to somewhere now, I've been practicing leaving my phone in the car, especially if I or something. It's hard. I'm not telling you, it's really hard because we're not used to it. With my wife there, I feel a little bit better because she has her phone, but I don't have mine because I need to practice sometimes restraint. And for
Yeah.
me, before I do it, I already know it's gonna stink. It's not gonna feel good. It's not gonna feel good, and I prepare my mind because it's gonna not feel good. But that's temporary. So for me, I've been able slowly step, and this is something new that we're all kind of growing. And the idea is, I love this word is in Spanish. It says vacilando, traveling when the experience itself is more important than the destination. During this COVID, sometimes I just get so cooped up. I say to my wife, let's just go drive, and we'll just drive. No GPS. We're so focused on the destination, not enjoying being present. I skipped. I went back and forth, but I want to ask you, what is a danger you feel if we continue being complacent in our approach, as the word suggests, in our mindset per se? Like, I know it kind of looks clunky, but
Was there
if we're
another
just
was there another word there? Which word is it?
look, in our approach as the word suggests in our this is the word. Sorry.
Okay, good.
Um, yeah, I'm
How do you
I'm
say
scared of
that?
word. I don't know. So it's my wife has this untranslatable words in other languages. So this is a word in Dutch that's basically ostrich politics, acting
Okay.
like you don't notice when something bad happens and continuing regardless as you normally would. Now that's thank you. This is what does that word suggest in our mindset if we stay in that complacency?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is if something bad happens, like we've labeled it as bad,
Yeah.
I don't know that things go on as normal per se. You may bury it,
Mm.
you may try your best, but it now kind of is on you. And if it's
Yeah.
something really bad, it might be a big weight on you that you're now carrying, but
Yeah.
you're pretending it's not there. And if it's not, it might be something light like a feather or something you can just brush off. But if we get complacent in our approach to our life, we go backwards because
Yeah.
nothing stands still. That's just science. So you're actually moving backwards, even if you can't see it. You think, well, I'll just be right here, and then the other thing is, if you're being complacent, you probably think something outside needs to change before you can change, before you can get into action, before
Yeah.
you can do something, before you can be something, have something, whatever. And that's just simply not true. And I'm total proof of this because Minds in Motion exists because, during a COVID time, I didn't hope and wait that COVID went away and people would have parties again for my party company. I created something new in
Mm-hmm.
spite of the fact that I could have very easily gotten all the attention, all the sympathy in the world. Oh my gosh, you've had this for so long. I can't believe this happened to you. And, if I sat on my couch and, just started drinking vodka every day, all day, people would have been like, I get it. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
bad.
Mm.
So I think you go backwards and you lose. And the further back you go and the longer it is, the harder it's going to be to restart, get yourself in action
Yeah.
again. I think you got to never stop moving
One
forward.
thing I notice whenever I talk to either church members or whatever is, just because of my context of where I go, is when they tell me the best time of their life is 30 years ago or 10 years ago. When it's
Mm.
always church was best 10 years ago. I'm just using church as a night. as, but it could be any illustration, like, oh, this was better, whatever, 20 years ago. And I feel that that's a really problem, because that kind of, at least for me, from my experience, is the aftermath of this complacency. Because eventually it's always externally that's wrong. And eventually you start you have this nostalgia of something in the past that, was so much better than it is now. It's no longer the same. No action forward. Action, and you're just pulling backwards. Well, I love this one quote from Yasmin Mogahed. She says, resilience is very different than being numb. Resilience means you experience, you feel, you fail, you hurt, you fall, but you keep going. It's that, like, sometimes we think, being strong is just muscling it through. But a lot of times, a lot of the healing comes through that pain. And then that rediscovery, and it's right there in front of you. The idea that we're recapturing, reinvesting in ourselves, in our lives. So I find that quote is amazing. So I want to ask you, finding our refuge. We've been talking. That's theme. This. What do you think the topic means to you personally? Why do you feel kids discovering their inner superhero, as you've been saying all this time, is so important, especially today?
Yeah. Well, so finding our refuge and recovery. So, I think one of it, that comes to me is really just finding that place where you feel supported. You had another guest who really talked about, that she couldn't do it alone because, her alone didn't work, or something like that. And I think you really do need to, it's such a big difference between not knowing what you want, where you're going, and just being sort of this floating ship that all the pirates and sharks can come get and pull you this direction and that way, or having a destination and saying, I have a place that I'd like to land. I'd like to do this or be this or have this. And you go that way. So when the pirates and the sharks come, they don't pull you off course. They're like, hey, come on over here. We should maybe do some drugs. And you're like, no, because that doesn't fit where I'm going. So
yes,
I think their refuge may exist inside of a path. And those who do not have a path are really, just out there ready to be fished, ready to be grabbed. And it would take a ton of power that I don't think most of them have in order to go, nah, no thanks, when there's not a reason, there's not another place that they're headed. So we do a lot of work in action, like all this mindset training and all this is super great. It'll give you something up here, but until you take it out into the world, because that's where we live, into your physical plane, then it really doesn't matter. So many people imagine so much stuff they would love to do. When I wrote the book, at least 20 people have come to me and go, oh, I always wanted to write a kid's book. I go, oh, why didn't you? Oh, this and that. I'm like, well, I don't know if you can do it. So I hope I answered that. But I think for kids discovering their inner superhero, and it's really their inner superpowers, which makes them an inner superhero. I like to call it the ISP instead of the ESP or superpowers. Then you become confident. We talk about the mores and the lesses: more confident, more powerful, more calm, more joyful. And the lesses, less stress, less upset, less anxiety, less overwhelm, less, and the kids want that. They're like, oh, yes, I want less of that, less of that, less of that, more of that, more of that, more of that, please. And then we can share that with them, and they think it's going to be hard, but I've simplified it. And it wasn't even I simplified it. It's simple. And then it may not be easy because you got to build muscle, right? You can't just go lift the 200 pounds. You got to lift the 50 first, right? Or 25. Or whatever, wherever you are at your strength, and then build it up. But as you and I both know, if you don't get started, you're never going to lift that 200.
And then the wonderful thing of this concept is that while you're building on that, you're investing in yourself and your value. You're like, well, I want to better myself. So in the beginning, it might be 5-pound bells or whatever, but it kind of builds on each other is what I'm trying to say. As you set these parameters, you're like, well, I as you said, a destination, having a uh when you're excited about the other day, when you're excited about tomorrow, that's what basically what I was trying to say. When you're excited about tomorrow, Viktor Frankl, one of the books I really loved, he mentions some of the the the, the prisoners, Jewish prisoners with him, and he said, in the concentration camps, he said the ones who made it were the ones who thought there was another day. That was it.
Yeah.
There was another day forward, and that's where that's where I feel the danger can be, when all the days have already done. When all the
Yeah.
days are the best behind us. When we
You're only
can
looking
actually say,
backwards.
yeah, when you can actually say that the days I'm excited about tomorrow. Yeah, change happens, and you develop these skills. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing you're doing, Scott. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Scott, would you mind sharing what brought you to be so passionate working in mindset? I know you mentioned some of it. What keeps you going? Let me just ask you that. What keeps you going?
I know what's on the other side.
Yeah.
And I know the more and more I get to share it, like podcasts like yours and people and speaking and stuff, the more eyes get opened. And, like I said, if it really, my market would be kids who feel limited, they feel stopped. They actually are up to something or would like to have something. They just don't know how to get past where they are.
Yeah.
And so that can make a huge difference in this world of people who just kind of go with the, normal, sort of unfulfilled life, and those who actually live out their dreams and create and make, beautiful things and have beautiful, amazing lives. So that is it. So I know what's on the other side. And then, like I said, I've worked with kids and teens for a really long time. In starting this program, I interviewed many, 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 many families, and I found out what the problems were and how big they were. And I knew that I could make the difference. I mean, look, I've been in front of crowds with microphones, DJing for so many years. I can speak, I can talk, and I know, this stuff. I'm an avid student of it. I would never say I know enough or I know it all at all, but I know enough to get it to the kids, and I continue to learn, and they continue to teach me and tell me what they need, so I can share it with them. And then finally, I have my own 6-year-old son, and that's Dax, and that's my book, Dax to the Max, Power of Your Imagination. So the cool thing about this book is it shows kids as young as like even 3 years old how to get past fear by using their imagination. And so I know that a lot of kids I've heard, have really experienced like that they're using this. In our book, the fear is called Fredley. Fredley's a bear. And, using the imagination, Dax is able to turn Fredley into something fun, exciting, challenging. So it doesn't have to be scary, right? And then he can move on from there. And lots of parents have told me that their kids have taken their fear and have been able to move past fears that they've had, seemingly their whole lives. So that's really, really important to me. So there'll be more books, and we're actually, pitching to a TV show for Dax to the Max too. And the important thing about that is it gets out to more people.
That's wonderful, and I just want to share with those listening and watching all the information to know more about what Scott Feld is doing, Dax the Max. Everything will be in the notes that you could click and on this episode, and on the audio version and on the video. Any other final thoughts you want to share with those listening?
No, I want to reiterate one thing that you said is just that, it is the journey that builds the person. And if you're not on a journey, you're not building the person, but you're wishing you had certain things like the mores and the lesses that I talked about, but you haven't stepped into action. And it just might be because you don't know where to go or what to do or how to get there. And this is for adults too. And so if you want these things to be gone and you want more of the good, you just got to start moving into action. And that action's got to be towards something that you love, that you want, that you've created. You keep going to your energy and your focus. And that journey will build that character, and you'll get all of those things for sure.
That's wonderful. I know a lot. There was one quote, I forgot who said it. It says, it's not about obtaining, but becoming something more. It's
Absolutely.
Like a lot of times we think about obtaining things for happiness, about becoming something better. Thank you, Scott, for sharing your insight with us today. I just wanted to tell those, remember to stay updated with Revive Ministry through the various platforms. ReviveMinistriesFL.com is our website. This is goodbye for Revive Ministry for now. Scott, a lot of times I denote me being good at podcasts by having returning guests. So don't be surprised if later this year or something I might reach out again. So with that being said, the last quote from Mahatma Gandhi. Every worthy act is difficult. Ascent is always difficult. Descent is easy and often slippery.